Picture this. It's Friday night. Your phone buzzes. A friend is texting you about a party. There's going to be music, people, food, maybe a rooftop. And you look at that message, look around your living room, look at your couch, your blanket, maybe your cat, and you think, yeah, no. You make up an excuse, something about being tired, something about an early morning, and then you sink deeper into that couch, exhale like you just survived something, and feel genuinely, completely relieved. Sound familiar? Here's the thing the world doesn't tell you. That relief is real. That preference isn't laziness. And the person on that couch is not broken, not antisocial, not wasting their life. What they are, psychologically speaking, is actually fascinating. And today, we're going to find out exactly why. We live in a culture that worships busyness. Hustle culture tells you to grind. Social media tells you to be everywhere, do everything, document all of it. And somewhere along the way, we started treating staying in like a character flaw. Like if you're home on a Saturday night, you must be depressed or friendless or somehow losing the game of life. But psychology tells a very different story. Because the truth is, some people don't just tolerate being at home, they actively thrive there. They feel more alive, more creative, more themselves between their own four walls than they ever do in a crowd. And the reasons behind that go all the way down to their brain chemistry, their nervous system, their deepest sense of identity. So let's start at the beginning. Let's start with what's actually happening inside someone who genuinely loves being home. The first place most people go is introversion. And yes, that's part of it. But it's more nuanced than the pop psychology version you've probably heard. When most people say, I'm an introvert, what they're actually describing is this. Social interaction costs them energy instead of giving it. Extroverts charge their internal battery by being around people. Introverts drain it. Home is where the charging happens.
But here's what's interesting. Researcher Elaine Aron took this even further with her work on what she called high sensitivity. About 15 to 20% of the population has a nervous system that is genuinely more reactive to stimulation. Not in a broken way, in an evolutionary way. It's actually a survival trait. These people process sensory information more deeply and more thoroughly than others. Noise, crowds, bright lights, social complexity, it all hits harder. So when they come home and close the door, they're not being antisocial. They're literally letting their nervous system decompress from a world that was designed for a different kind of brain. Think of it like this. Imagine everyone is walking around with a different kind of antenna. Some antennas pick up basic signals just fine. Others pick up everything, every frequency, every background noise, every emotional undercurrent in a room. Being out in the world with that kind of antenna is exhausting in a way that's almost impossible to explain to someone without one. But it goes even beyond sensitivity. Let's talk about what home actually does to the brain. When you're in a space that feels safe, familiar, and under your control, your brain shifts out of something called the threat response, the mode where your amygdala is scanning for danger, your cortisol is elevated, your prefrontal cortex is partly offline, and it slips into what neuroscientists loosely call the default mode network, a state where you can actually think, where you can reflect, imagine, make meaning, dream. This is the state where creativity lives, where your best ideas come from, where your sense of self gets to breathe. For people who love being home, that transition from the world outside to their own space is profoundly pleasurable at a neurological level. The brain releases something like a small reward signal when the threat is gone and the safety arrives, which means that you feel when you close the front door, that's biochemical. It's real. Your brain is literally rewarding you for coming home. There's another layer here that doesn't get talked about enough. Control.
Psychologists have long studied what's called the locus of control, basically whether you feel like you have agency over your environment. And one of the things that causes the most chronic low-level stress in modern life is not danger exactly, but unpredictability. Open offices, loud restaurants, social situations where you don't know who's going to say what. Your own home is one of the last environments where you are genuinely in charge. You control the temperature, the sound, the light, who comes in, who doesn't. For certain personality types, especially those who score high in what psychologists call conscientiousness or neuroticism, that controllability isn't just comfortable, it's emotionally essential. There's a concept in environmental psychology called restorative environments, spaces that help the mind recover from directed attention fatigue. Kaplan and Kaplan's attention restoration theory, developed in the 1980s, found that certain environments allow our brains to stop working so hard. Nature is one, quiet is another, and your home, when it's experienced as a sanctuary, can function as one too. You're not hiding from the world, you're restoring your capacity to engage with it. Here's something I want you to sit with for a second, because I think it's genuinely beautiful. The people who love being home the most are almost universally people with rich inner worlds. They read, they think, they create, they imagine. They have internal conversations that never get boring. They find the inside of their own mind genuinely interesting company. This isn't arrogance, it's a kind of cognitive abundance. Research on daydreaming, yes, there's actual research on daydreaming, has found that people who have vivid, productive inner lives tend to score higher on measures of creativity, empathy, and emotional intelligence. The mind that is comfortable being still, being alone, being with itself, is a mind that has developed something rare: self-sufficiency. And there's a philosophical tradition that celebrates this. The Stoics valued what they called the inner citadel, the idea that your interior life is the one thing truly under your control, and cultivating it is one of the highest pursuits. Blaise Pascal once wrote, paraphrased, that all of humanity's problems stem from the inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And here you are, sitting quietly, a room, alone. Maybe you're not behind, maybe you're ahead. Now, I want to acknowledge something, because this wouldn't be an honest conversation if I didn't. There is a version of loving home that can become avoidance. There's a line, not always a clear one, between I genuinely recharge here and I'm using this space to hide from something I'm afraid of. Anxiety can wear the costume of introversion. Grief can wear the costume of preference. And it's worth asking yourself, gently and honestly, which one you're living. If being home fills you up, if you come out of that solitude feeling like yourself, that's restorative. But if being home has become the only way you feel safe, if the thought of leaving feels like dread rather than inconvenience, that's worth paying attention to. Not judging, just noticing. So here's where I want to leave you. If you are someone who loves being home, I want you to stop apologizing for it. Stop calling it laziness when it's actually discernment. Stop calling it antisocial when it's actually self-aware. Your nervous system is not a malfunction. Your preference for depth over noise is not a flaw. Your need to restore before you re-engage is not weakness. It is, quite literally, wisdom your body figured out before you did. The world needs people who are good at being still, who think before they speak, who know what they actually feel because they've spent enough time alone to figure it out, who can sit with themselves without needing the world to fill the silence. So the next time someone asks why you didn't come out last Friday, you don't have to explain yourself. But if you wanted to, you could say, I was restoring my nervous system, strengthening my default mode network, engaging my inner citadel, and resisting the late-stage capitalist lie that rest is laziness. Or you could just say you were tired. That works too. If this resonated with you, drop it in the comments. Tell me what your home means to you. And if you know someone who loves their couch a little too much and never understood why, send this to them. It might be the most seen they've felt in a while. See you in the next one.